Welcome to the Super Subs with
Andrew
and Harry, where we talk about anything and everything related to football. So today is episode number 20 and is the season finale of our first ever season of the Super Subs. Andrew and I have been running this podcast since October, and time has flown by. It's been 5 months. Can you believe it's been 5 months? It's
no,
crazy.
No, I can't. Yeah, we've already been through one World Cup and out the other side. It's pretty crazy.
I know, yeah. And it's timely that we, had a World Cup in between, had several international periods, had plenty of football news to think about. And now we've got a guest on the podcast as well. His name's Josiah. I'll give him the floor to give a little bit of an intro on his soccer or football knowledge. But Josiah, I'll pass it off to you, and then we'll introduce the topic of the day.
All right. Thank you, Harry and Andrew. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it. I played soccer when I was a kid, just like super recreationally, like AYSO, kids love soccer. So that was like my first intro to what soccer was, but I never watched it on like television. Like I didn't know it was like a professional sport. So I kind of never watched it on TV, just played it like in the park and whatnot in the clubs. So kind of fell away from it. And in 2010 World Cup was when I kind of started watching soccer more on television. And then I just fell in love with the game and like started playing FIFA, and then just everything was just all about soccer. Right. And so now, waking up at like 4:30 in the morning to watch Tottenham, my club, play. Gotta
He's
rep
a Spurs
at that
fan.
time.
Gotta
support. Gotta support. So it's been great, and started playing some rec soccer here now, like just to get that experience. Like it's a game that I don't know, like you just have like emotional connection to it, and like you just like love playing it, love watching it. It's a good time.
Absolutely. And you talked about the 2010 World Cup. Was that the Spanish when the Spain won and Spain-Netherlands in the final?
Yes. Yeah. I remember like, I was just like, this is like crazy. Like that was honestly like the first World Cup I watched. And I was like, this is like you start seeing all these like big players, right? And you're, oh my gosh, like I didn't know like he was in that same like country, nation as that other player. And you're just like, it was a great time. Fell in love with the game.
Amazing. Well, Josiah, thanks for giving an intro on yourself. We're going to go into the topic of the day. And Josiah, we're going to hear obviously a lot more from you. And Andrew and I have our own thoughts. The topic of today's podcast for our season finale, pod number 20, is how do you pick your favorite football player? So this is actually a full circle moment for Andrew and myself, because our first podcast, I think, was how do you watch football, or what was your how do you pick your favorite football team, or things like that. And for a lot of people, watching their first match is even a big occasion, because a lot of people don't understand what's going on in a match. There's a lot of back and forth, right? I mean, Josiah and Andrew, both of you understand there's not that many goals. It's not like there's a goal every 2 minutes or 3 minutes like basketball. Back and forth, you're going to get a lot of actual points scored. So a lot of people want to understand how to watch the game a little bit better, and also in that same vein, pick a football player to follow, and what traits and key components make players stand out from each other. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. But before we dive into all of that, what's everyone drinking? Andrew, we'll start with you. Andrew, what are you sipping on today?
So I am drinking from Camino Brewery in San Jose. Down here in the South Bay, we've got a Pale Rider, so it's a grapefruit zest pale ale. So
show the camera. I want to see that.
Yeah, pretty cool local brewery. They've got tasty stuff, and they've got a tap room here in town. So yeah, that's what I'm enjoying today. How about you, Josiah?
I'm going with my favorite soda, the Mandarin Doritos.
Oh, so
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The go-to.
Always have to. I mean, Doritos is a classic drink, all kinds of great flavors, but Mandarin is probably one of the best.
Absolutely.
And then I've also got a beer. I've got a triple IPA called Ferret the Younger. You might not be able to see it in the light here, so let me try to shade this. But I drove this down from Portland, actually. It's a brewery in Portland called Culmination Brewing. I went took a trip there just a couple weeks ago and brought back a 4-pack, and they try to emulate Pliny the Younger. So if you know Pliny the Younger, Pliny the Elder, Younger is very rare to get. Sometimes you have to wait for hours in line when you go up to like Russian River Brewing to actually get a pint or two. So this is their take on it, and it's very good, but it's also very strong. So by the end of this, I'm going to be slurring my words, but this is Ferret the Younger from Culmination. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. So why don't we go ahead and get into today's topic of how you pick your favorite football player. So as the listener, if you haven't picked a favorite player yet, you can take some tips today and understand what to look for in players. If you do have a favorite player, just listen along. Maybe you'll find some new ones to follow. So Andrew, let's go to you first. We'll keep this short and simple, and then we'll go to the second topic. So Andrew, who's your favorite player and why? Let's go ahead and start there.
Yeah, so it pains me to say this as a United fan, Manchester United fan, but it's actually got to be Thierry Henry, who played for a lot of different clubs, but in his prime, my favorite years for him were at Arsenal. I think as a tall player myself and someone that played up top, I really loved his style and how effortlessly he made things look. I used to collect goals of the season when I was a kid on DVD, and I used to always watch his highlights in particular. And he absolutely captivated me with his swagger. Even his goal celebrations I would emulate when I played and scored. So it's
the little high knees. He used to like run around after he scored a goal and like high knees and all that stuff.
Yep, and the airplane with the arms out. The whole thing. Classic. So that's my pick. How about you, Josiah?
So I went off my answers for this due to like the first game I ever watched, like professional game, and so that was Tottenham, and I think they were playing. I think it was Everton, and I think Harry Kane and Heung-min's son like just like captivated me, and I was like wow, like. I think Harry Kane, in the way he's just like a complete striker and he's like evolved into one now. He can like shoot from anywhere. He can drop deep and put a nice pass in for his teammate. And I was like, this guy's just like deadly in front of goal. And Hillman's son with like pace and like just his finishing from anywhere. I was like, those are my two favorite.
Yeah, no, really good picks, really deadly players. For myself, I'll rewind the clock even a little bit more. Before Thierry Henry was David Beckham. And I feel like, you know, even past, and I talked to Andrew a little bit about the podcast. If you're a listener and you've been following along, I've said David Beckham's name quite a few times, but it's because he definitely left an imprint on me in terms of just the way that he played football. It seemed like he was just like trotting around out there and, you know, wasn't a player that's known for his tricks or really gifted dribbling or physicality or anything like that, but the way that he could send a ball into the box and the way that he played right wing, just so pinpoint, he could send the ball exactly where you needed. I think, you know, obviously bend it like Beckham and a bunch of movies, and he's an icon all over, superstar. But at the end of the day, a lot of people even overlook his footballing skills, and I think he's just a phenomenon in his own right. So if you have some time to look up some highlights of Beckham and not just his face, I would highly suggest it on YouTube. Great. So I think that's a good segue into our next topic. And I want to pose some of these to you, and Josiah, either you or Andrew can go first. So there's some key differences and attributes that definitely make players stand out from each other. And I wanted to have this more of an open discussion, and we'll talk about the topic of skills first. So every player has different skills, whether you think about Brazilian players that have a little bit more flair or certain players that have a little bit more skills and tricks. What are some players that come to mind when you hear the word skills, or like flair, tricks, skills, things like that?
I would say Neymar first.
Oh, there we go. Tell me more.
I mean, you said the Brazilian flair, like, he's got that, you know, he's like going to do some crazy dribbling skill to get out of like an impossible situation and like just open up the game that way. And he's got like speed to like move around players. So I think Neymar would come first in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, what about you?
I think, man, maybe Mbappe. And I think the skills, like, it's not only the dribbling, but I think it's also the finishing for me as well. Just the composure that he has and the fact that he's so young, early 20s, and he's already dominating the world stage. I think that really comes to mind for me.
Yeah. And then in terms of myself skills, I think I think Mbappe is one up there for sure. I think just some of these youngsters, I'm going to pick Garnacho actually. So he's a young winger, left winger that plays for Manchester United right now. And the way that he dribbles at pace down the wing reminds me almost of a short Spanish Gareth Bale. It's a terrible comparison, but I'm just going to go for it. But the way that he just stays on his feet and can get around people, Andrew, I agree with you. Skills can be dribbling. You've got that kind of Cristiano Ronaldo. He does like 10,000 step overs and falls, and you have skills like that. And they were effective from time to time, but it's just so exciting to see some of these young people just blaze past older footballers as well. In terms of skills, why do you feel like these are, like this category is a notable one to differentiate players from another? What's so exciting about seeing some of these players pull off some of these skills? Josiah, I'll turn that one over to you.
I think the ability to use those skills to like open up a game, right? It's like to get past that first defender or to put that perfect ball in to, get your player on goal. I think it's that skill that just, opens up the game, lets the attack move into a dangerous position, unlocks the defense, is what they say sometimes. So I think that's the key part of it.
Yeah, because a lot of games, especially if it's a tightly contested game, the defense can be almost a wall, right? It's like hard to see the ball actually penetrate. And I think that's what's sometimes so frustrating about maybe a new fan breaking into football or soccer.
Right. When
they watch a game and you see they can't even get past the attacking third, either team. They're like, this is no fun. They're not even anywhere near the goal. But like when you have one player that shines, I know exactly what you mean. That's awesome. Andrew, what about yourself? Why do you think skills are a differentiator in terms of telling players apart or being able to pick a favorite player?
I think it's really like the defining factor of a player, and I think the cool thing about skills is it's such a mind-body component where you've got players that have just brilliant footballing minds. So it's one thing to have the skills, but it's another thing to connect it with the football IQ, as they say it, having that knowledge, knowing when to, drop into spaces, drop back, how to position yourself, when to take smart fouls to, impede progress from the other team. I think it really makes football players stand out, especially. I mean, you think about it like in any other sport, NBA, NFL, things like that. I mean, the players that have that next level of skill, whatever it may be, those are the guys that you remember for sure.
Yeah. And then for myself, I have to echo both your points. I think unlocking a defense is so exciting. And then I think sometimes skills can be attributed to personality as well. If you think about Neymar, he's a goofy character, right? He's not like this boring guy that goes to sleep at 9 p.m. And then, like, if you both know James Milner, so as a listener, there's some, as you get to be more of a football fan, especially all three of us are Premier League fans, we know some of these people that play day in, day out in the Premier League every week. And some of them are really, like Jack Grealish, he's a sweetheart. His IQ is very low, but he's got a high footballing IQ. And
wonderful
Jack,
hair.
if you're watching this, I'm so sorry, Jack. If you ever watch this, we're honored, but no, nothing personal. But there's some people personally, like the way they play is almost an attribute of who they are as a person. James Milner, this workhorse, he plays for Liverpool. He can play in defense, midfield. He can even play up front if you need to, maybe in the goal. But he has the stereotype of going to sleep at 9, waking up early in the morning, just being a straight shooter. So I think almost those skills tie in with the personality as well, almost, right?
he doesn't even drink soda. I think he said in an interview, like,
Really?
to celebrate his birthday once a year, he'll have his favorite, like, British soda, which is...
Horrible.
I mean, we were talking about
ooh.
Cristiano Ronaldo in the last pod, no Coca-Cola. So that's, it's getting up there.
Exactly. I mean, Cristiano eats, like, you know, flavorless chicken and then salad. I don't know what he eats. Yeah. Cool.
So let's go. Best.
I know, seriously. Let's go on to the next one. So, in terms of this trait, physicality, just both of you tell me what player comes to mind when you think of a physically imposing and capable player. Andrew, let's start with you first.
You know, when the first thing that came to mind was actually Tyler Adams at Leeds United.
He's not big either. Yeah.
He's not big. So for those of you that don't know, Tyler Adams is a U.S. player, represents the U.S. men's national team, and made a recent move this season from Red Bull Leipzig or Salzburg? Leipzig, I think. Aronson came from Salzburg, and he plays for Leeds United. And he is just a workhorse in the middle of the pitch and has this kind of notoriety as being this enforcer. So he's often known to, you know, shoulder check different players, get in their face, and he has some of the leading stats right now in the Premier League this season for tackles. So he's really doing a lot of work in the Leeds midfield. So cool to see a U.S. player do so well.
That's awesome. And then Josiah, yourself, what do you think about when you think about a physically capable player?
Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Oh, great answer.
That guy was just physical, like a presence on the field, right? Like he's like a focal point. Like it's just a reference point. And so like he does like some acrobatic kick. It's like nothing, you know, and he's just so big too. And yeah, I think he's just one of the most physical players that was ever playing.
Yeah. No, I have to agree with that. And my answer would be Nemanja Vidic. So he's a central defender that played for Manchester United, and he had a partnership with this guy, Rio Ferdinand, for a while, and they played as a great partnership because he was known as the Serbian enforcer. He didn't let anyone past him, and he would chop you down if you even got close to the goal. And I think the next question, inevitably, as we get through each of these different points, you know, what makes physicality so exciting and a differentiator to pick your favorite player? I think just seeing, you know, how much of a stark contrast you can have when you put up a really physical player with someone that's really light on their feet but not physical at all. Like you have this big central defender and they're just knocking people over left and right. That's just inherently exciting to watch as a fan. You're like, yeah, get him, you know? Yeah. And then conversely, if you're on the opposing team, you're like, that's a foul. So I think that's part of what makes that exciting, and be able to throw your weight behind them as a fan behind that specific player. I mean, Andrew, Josiah, why do you think physicality matters in being able to pick out or differentiate a player, and how would that matter in choosing a favorite player?
I think it's just, you know, it's inherently these players are playing at the top level of, you know, their chosen field. So how they, you know, play on the pitch is so important, and it's gotten even more involved or evolved over the years, and involved for that matter, because of, you know, what we've seen in sports performance training, biofeedback, things like that. So these players are like robots now. It's pretty incredible with all, you know, the tech and data that we have to see these players. And I think, you know, physicality leads to one of our talking points later, which is longevity. So how you take care of your body and your mind, for that matter, will then lead to your longevity in the field, for sure. Josiah, how about you?
I think you said it, like longevity, you know, coming from the physicality that they put their bodies through, and staying healthy, like, is just a huge part of the game, because it helps them get experience, right? You can keep playing more games, you know, you're not out injured, like it keeps your body in good shape. And like you just get more knowledge just from being able to play at that level, you know, even if it's like coming in as a sub or whatnot. I think it's exciting to see, like, you know, keep recognizing players on the field, and you're like, oh, like, I know what that guy can do. And like, so it's like, it's great to watch as a fan too, because like, you know, like that guy how he's going to play and like how, that can help the team in that match.
Yeah, it's very nostalgic as well. I mean, if you've grown up with a player almost, like you've watched a player when they were young and you were young, and then now you're older and they're older, right? It's I think Gigi Buffon is a great example of this. He's still playing in the second or third tier, I think second tier of Italian football. And he's, just for listener or context as a listener, he was the Italian first, national team goalkeeper for maybe almost 2 decades. Just so good at the top of his game, and he's mid-40s now, and he's still playing professional football. And some people watched him when he was in his early teens, so that's almost 30 years of football. So
incredible.
I think those are all great points. Let's go on to charisma. So what players stand out in both your minds in terms of being so charismatic, either on the field, off the field, just they have a presence or an aura about them that makes you feel like, hey, I like this guy, even if he's not the best in terms of like the skills or the physicality, but something about him or her, hey, I like this player. Josiah, I'll turn it over to you first, and then Andrew after.
Oh man, charisma. That's a great
might be a hard one. Yeah, right? Yeah.
I think in terms of presence, I would say Messi. I know he's a quiet guy though, right? Like he doesn't talk during matches or anything, but I mean, like every team is aware of him. Like that's where you're focusing on, right? And but like his teammates, like you watch like Argentina, like in the world, they're like, we're playing for Messi, like we're gonna get this man his World Cup, and like just his charisma and just like I feel like all teams like want to play for him, right? And like all his teammates seem to love him, and like he's not like the loudest guy, but like he's like the loudest on the field because he can make the most difference.
Yeah, that's a great answer. No, I completely agree with that. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, back to just Josiah's point. I just saw a tweet earlier today about how Nicolas Otamendi got a big tattoo piece with Messi on it and Messi's face and everything. And I think it was Messi approved. I know Richarlison, I believe, got a tattoo of, I think it was Neymar, and it was not Neymar approved.
Not approved, no.
Yeah, if you're going to get a tattoo of when you're buddies, make sure that they're okay with it. But in all seriousness, I think I would have to... So I'm actually going to go to the new generation, so I'm going to have to pick Jude Bellingham. I'm a big Dortmund fan.
Yeah, there we go.
So for listeners that have been following us, you probably know by now that I'm a United fan. I'm also a big Dortmund fan from my brief stint living in Germany. But, British player, he's young. I think this summer he's going to go for a record-breaking fee from Dortmund to some sort of big club, Real Madrid, Liverpool, United, Chelsea, who knows. And you just watch interviews with him or how he interacts with his Dortmund teammates, or, he's even captained games in the Champions League for Dortmund. And just to have that leadership at such a young age and that class that he has on the pitch, I think, we're really graced with a great talent. And I think he's one of many great talents that we're going to see in this next generation. So very excited. How about you, Harry?
I'm going to go with Roy Keane. So
Roy Keane.
I know, Roy Keane. And for the listeners that watch Ted Lasso, Roy Keane was the inspiration behind Roy Kent. But so there's the connection there. But in terms of charisma, he wasn't the most liked character, in football. He was just this hard ass player that wouldn't take no for an answer. He was the captain of Manchester United for a long time in the 2000s. But he just had this commanding presence. And I think that's what I think of when I almost think of charisma. It's, people would run through walls for you, Josiah, to your point, like Messi, his own team is there to support him and to make sure he gets the win, right? He had this interview recently where he said he would trade all of his Ballon d'Ors for one Copa America, let alone, I'm sure he would trade 400 of his goals for a World Cup. And now he has a World Cup, so he's, arguably GOAT. But I would say Roy Keane. If you don't know who Roy Keane is, definitely watch some of his videos. He has this face-off against Patrick Vieira, who was also the captain of Arsenal back in the 2000s, and he just he wasn't the most tall player or physically wide player, but he just had this presence, and you didn't want to get him mad. He's like, your dad, if he disapproves of you, that sad days for you. Cool. Let's move on to the last two, and then we'll wrap up with some standout players. So longevity, I think we covered this a little bit, so we won't dig too deeply into these, but I'd love some examples. Andrew, we can start off with you. The player that comes to mind when you think of longevity.
When I think of longevity, I think of CR7, Cristiano Ronaldo.
There we go.
So he is a player that, when we think about physicality and skills, has really mastered and honed his craft.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you think of him off the pitch and his interviews and things like that, you have to respect the man's work rate. And, he's playing in the Saudi Arabian Pro League right now, which, some would argue is a step down, and I think it is, from European football. But, he is still putting in the work and still really generating goals, goal opportunities. And I think he's someone that, could play in, deep 40s if given the chance.
Yeah, he's just crazy about football. Josiah, what about you? Who comes to mind when you think about longevity?
I think I would follow along with Andrew. I think CR7 is like the epitome, right? Like that man lives and breathes being the best football player he can ever be.
Yeah.
And he's like, he doesn't drink soda, right? Or he like stays on a strict diet. He has a good own workout regimen and everything. And his work ethic, right, is everyone says that man will outwork anyone that challenges. So CR7 for sure.
Yeah. Let's make this a hat trick. I'll go with the same thing. And just because I think in terms of his mentality as well, I think longevity can happen on the physical side. You can be really determined, take care of your body well, physically rest up, eat well. I definitely know I don't sleep well or eat well. So that's definitely a huge difference. But I think mentally also, he's got that longevity. Ever since he was 16, 17 at Sporting, being scouted by Manchester United, he's had the same fire he's always had for football. And it just shows, even in his stubbornness, it shows, right? His stubbornness to not admit that he is falling a little bit behind in terms of pace or his touch or that perfection of the game that he used to have. Still, he's a great player. No one could deny that. But I think his mentality is what really kept him going all these years. And even into his older years, it may be his, I don't want to say downfall, but it's keeping his stubbornness alive to think, he's still one of the best players, which he's in that consideration, but he's not at the top anymore. But his mentality is just second to none. So I would say a great example of a long mentality and a healthy mentality as well. Cool. Let's get into the last topic of what can differentiate a player to spot some of your favorite players' leadership. So think of players that command other players on the pitch, not just charisma, but have good leadership skills, can shout at different players, tell them to get in certain positions, have been historically a club captain or national team captain, anything like that. Who comes to mind when you think of someone that has great leadership abilities? Josiah, I'll turn it over to you first.
I would have to go with, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name right now. Liverpool, captain.
Van Dijk?
Jordan Henderson.
There we go.
Jordan Henderson.
Yeah, that man, commands that midfield, and his teammates listen to him, and he's not afraid to bark back at his own players, and also bark at the other team too, and he leads them out there. So I'm about to go with Jordan Henderson. Yeah,
nice, love it. Andrew, what about you?
I'm gonna have to go with Gary Neville, Manchester United player. Was captain from 2005 2011. You can see him now as a pundit, on Sky Sports, I think it is, but a really, really dominant figure in the Sir Alex Ferguson era of Manchester United, and led them to a lot of great trophies, and really a force to be reckoned with at right back. So I would have to go with him. Harry, who are you thinking?
Oh, this is a tough one because there's been a lot of great leaders in the past. I would have to pick, and I don't even know if he's club captain because I'm not a City fan, obviously, but I think just in terms of bringing that presence and difference and having players feed off of this one player, Kevin De Bruyne, when he's on the pitch, he commands the play. I mean, kind of analogous to NFL, American football, being a quarterback, you pull the strings, right? You throw the ball certain places, you run the play, you call things out. In European or world football, when you're the midfielder, you're the one pulling the strings. Kind of like a Paul Scholes type-esque. You tell the ball where to go. Everyone revolves a little bit around you. He doesn't necessarily need to speak volumes to lead people. People just make those runs, and he has the vision. He'll support you as a teammate. He'll make those deep runs with you. He'll ping the ball diagonally all the way across the field. He's just such an exciting player to watch because he influences players around him just with the way he plays, and he leads other people to be better. And I think it's just very amazing to see how he unlocks, and I feel like that's such a kind of buzzword, but unlocks other players to their best potential. Because it is true, if you're a player and you play on a team that's better than you play up to their potential, right? You play up to your own potential.
Yeah.
And if you play with a team where you're the linchpin and everyone relies on you, there's a lot of pressure and you might not perform. And that City team is just scary. Even though they're not in first right now in the Premier League, they're still very, very scary. Yeah. Perfect. So let's move into a nice section because this is going to be fun. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on standout players in different areas in football. So we're going to go ahead and start in free kicks. So free kicks are an iconic area of football. Obviously, there's free kicks from close range, from far distance. We think about, Cristiano Ronaldo, even though he doesn't score as many these days. Against Portsmouth, he scored from like 30, 35 yards out. Just some crazy free kicks in the history of football. Andrew, let's start with you. Who is going to be your best or most standout player in the free kicks arena?
I think for free kicks, for me, it's got to be JWP, James Ward Prowse, who currently plays his football at Southampton. I think it's safe to say that he has cemented himself as legend status with that club. That club is struggling this year and might very well go down, but he is an impeccable free kick taker. Pretty much every time he steps up, you think he might score. I just checked, he's got 17 free kick goals, and he's only one behind David Beckham's record for the English Premier League at 18. So no doubt he will get that record, and he does this amazing, iconic golf swing, or is it a cricket swing celebration?
It might be either. I'm not sure which one it is, yeah.
One of the two, but he is an absolute icon. He's not a very tall guy, but he generates so much power and curve on the ball. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Josiah, what about you? Who's your standout player for free kicks?
I would have to go with Kevin De Bruyne. That man can put the ball anywhere, and he is just phenomenal. I think you said it before, like he controls the game. Yeah. Like he can put that pass in for whoever, and then that translates into free kicks, right? Like he can just put that ball in the top corner, top bin, and like nowhere for the keeper to get to. So I would have to go with Kevin De Bruyne.
Love it. Andrew, I'm going to echo your pick, James Ward Prowse. It's crazy he's only 28, actually. So he's got plenty of time to beat David Beckham's free kick record. Knowing Beckham, moved from the Premier League to Real Madrid in his career, so he wasn't in the Premier League his whole career. But I've seen some YouTube clips of James Ward Prowse kicking a ball for a free kick, and just his technique and the way that he does this little almost hop and tries to like really curl it. It's just incredible. So I think that's part of why free kicks are so exciting. Just it's this moment where it's almost like the crowd goes silent because it's, the ball stops. Like the guy taking the free kick takes a breath, like, kind of like that CR7 Superman pose. And then you're like, is it going to go in? Is it not? So it's almost this such an exciting, and if you get known for it, that's like, that's one trait that absolutely makes you stand out. So let's go on to penalties. So Andrew, give me the player that you feel like stands out when you think about penalty kicks? And we talked about penalties just in our last podcast. It's very relevant time.
Oh, man. I feel like I'm changing my answers around, but I'm going to have to go with Alan Shearer, who is an absolute legend, played for Newcastle United. He has one of the highest, if not the highest, penalty conversion rates, and was an all-time leading scorer and set all kinds of records. The man has ice in his veins. He was absolutely incredible and was a true, true legend of English football, no doubt. Will always be remembered for that, I think.
Yeah. Josiah, what about you?
I'm going to go with my boy Harry Kane.
Harry Kane.
Harry Kane.
He's, England's top goal scorer right now. Broke the record just recently, I think, in the last international match and all that. So every time he steps in front of goal, like, I know he had that miss in the Euros, but I think that man is pretty much converts it every time you put him in front of goal in a penalty spot. So
yeah. He's very clinical, and I know some of these moments stick with footballers, but they don't define them. I'm sure that miss will stick with Harry Kane in I think the World Cup, right? The last World Cup.
Yes.
It doesn't take anything away from him. Kane is just so like fire from the spot or anywhere in the box. I'm going to have to go, and I think people are going to flame me if our podcast has any followers. So go ahead and, tweet at us or DM us on Instagram. I can take it. I'm going to go with Bruno Fernandes. And only because he's got that technique, that Jorginho, Bruno Fernandes, that I do think it's controversial. I do think putting a stutter or some kind of thing to put the goalie off, I do think it's controversial. But I'm going to go with him because he's so good at it. And just the way that he hops right before that kick. And the kick itself has no power behind it. And it makes the goalkeeper look so silly. Like they literally go one way and they have their arm like this, and then it goes this way, and they're just like, they feel so bad inside. And I feel like, when I see him take a penalty, I'm just like, okay, it's going in. So I'll have to go with Bruno Fernandes. Yeah. Dribbling. So this is a very exciting skill. Obviously, we talked about skills. Andrew, talk to us about your top dribbler.
I think, Harry, you and I might be on the same page with this one, but I think it's got to be Leo Messi. I think, you look at some of his footage from, when he was young and he was playing at Barcelona, and just how incredible he was, dribbling through hordes of different players to get to the goal and eventually score. Just the ball control that he has is incredible. And he's still doing it today. Say what you want about his career at PSG, whether he's underperforming or not, but you saw it in the World Cup. You've seen it in Copa. He just continues to amaze with his footwork. And for a small guy, he can really hold his balance and get through defenders like a knife through butter.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say that.
100%. Yeah. Josiah, what about you?
I think I would have to agree. Messi's dribbling is just world class. That his small stature, he's just so low to the ground. Like, it's hard for defenders to get to him. And his footwork, his touch, everything, it's dribble master for sure. So I would definitely have to go with Messi.
Yeah. I'll round it out. Another hat trick, Messi. Earlier we had a hat trick with CR7, so this is, the two almost greatest of all time. But
the GOATs.
Two GOATs.
I know, two GOATs. Messi, he's just so good. Undeniably good. Like, no one can, if you deny that he's one of the best dribblers, if not the best dribbler of all time, you're in another world, because it's just so clear the way he passes defenders. Josiah, you were talking a little bit earlier about unlocking the defense and going past, and he's just so exciting to watch, because I think there was this one highlight on YouTube, fact check me on this, but there was a team he was playing against in La Liga, and there's a highlight of his dribbles. Literally, someone jumped on his back and NFL tackled him to try to bring him down, and he still didn't come down. Like, that was how balanced he was, and people were pulling at his shirt and trying to pull his legs with their arms. It's just insane, like, how he stays on his feet. It's just so exciting. I think Messi is just an insane dribbler, and makes if your favorite player is Messi, I understand why. All right, tackling. So Andrew, let's get to tackling. Who's your favorite player or the standout player in terms of tackling a ball?
I think for me, it's Casemiro playing that central defensive mid position. He's been an absolute force for Real Madrid for a long time, and now at Manchester United. It's a shame he's out on red cards right now and can't play. That's another topic. But seeing his leadership and his football IQ and his tackling ability, he is up there with the top tacklers in the league right now as far as tackles made. And I think he'll continue to be for the rest of the season. And he's shown it as well, in his past career at Real Madrid, and then at the international level with Brazil, where he's currently the captain. So for me, it's got to be Casemiro.
Awesome. And then Josiah, what about you?
I'd have to go with another defensive midfielder, N'Golo Kanté. He's been injured this season, but just his time at Leicester and then also in Chelsea, that man was a presence, and he would be with any attacking player, stay with them, and get the ball away from them, and then just win possession back. And that man was just, I think, one of the best in his positions.
Yeah, and he's so nice too. He's got this smile, right?
It's like a nice guy. That's what everyone says. He's super humble, it's just like my job. He's I'm just clocking in, so that's what everyone says.
No
He's
ego.
a nice guy.
Yeah, him and Sadio Mane. I remember 2 articles about either of them. One, Conte was walking home and he's trying to get back home, and he stumbles upon a Chelsea fan and then goes with them to their kid's birthday party. It's just insane. He's just a normal guy, and then Sadio Mane donates so much money to places back home, and still uses an old phone from decades ago. Just some of these footballers, although there's some that have crazy cars, houses, etc., there's some that are just so humble, down to earth.
Right.
And obviously good at tackling. I'm gonna put Aaron Wan-Bissaka in there. He's just this weird, his limbs work in a way where he's that stretchy guy from Incredibles. What's his name? Or maybe I'm thinking about Fantastic Four. I'm not sure, but he stretches his limbs in a way where he just gets the ball off anybody. It could be anyone running in on goal. If Aaron Wan-Bissaka is tracking back, okay, he's probably going to put a tackle in. And it's just every time he gets the ball. So it's pretty insane. It's very special to watch. All right, coming up on the last 2, Andrew, who do you think makes the best saves? Usually a goalkeeper, but what player stands out in that aspect?
For me, we talked about him earlier. It's got to be Gigi Buffon for Italy. I think just the longevity that he's had and his leadership over the years, and how much he's won with all the different clubs, across Italy. I think for me, he's got to be one of the most iconic goalkeepers, hands down.
Oh yeah, Josiah, what about you?
I'm gonna have to go with Alisson, goalkeeper for Liverpool. I think, he's fantastic in front of goal. He's got that reflex. He's fast. He's that kind of plays that sweeper keeper. Comes out. He takes risks, but it pays off usually. But I think he's fantastic in front of goal, and he's put in a couple assists from the goal. Just dropping it deep for Saul to run into, and I think as a goalkeeper, right, that's just one of the best. Besides scoring from your own goal, right, just putting an assist in.
Yeah. I would have to say Casillas. So I was definitely a Real Madrid fan when I was a bit younger. I loved the Spanish national team as well. And Iker Casillas, he was just insane shot stopper for Real Madrid. They called him San Aguirre, I think Saint Aguirre. He was a legend of Real Madrid, and he just prevented so many goals from going in. And he's not tall either. I think he's only 6'1". A lot of goalkeepers 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", even 6'5", but he just did not let the ball go in the net, and he was just so reliable, very technical as well. And then last but not least, certainly, a trait, crossing. I think such an important skill from the left wing, from the right wing, etc. Andrew, who do you have as your standout player that can cross the ball into the box?
I think for me, it's got to be Kevin De Bruyne. I think his ability, and he demonstrates this, all aspects of the pitch, whether it's in his own half or in the attacking third or whatever it may be. I think his ability to understand where his players are going to be and then to put that ball perfectly in a position for them to be successful with that ball. So whether that's heading the ball, finishing it one time, settling it, I think he's just one of the best as far as his ability to put balls at his teammates' feet. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, he blows me away. I don't like Man City, but I love to watch the man play. I'll say that.
Respect. Josiah, what about you?
I think Kevin De Bruyne, of course, again, is just known for being able to put the pass in and the cross in and just open up games that way. But I do like center backs who can also put that long diagonal ball in. I feel like that's just like that pass is like so hard to defend against, right? And so if you're able to do that and you have a fast winger, right, that can just make that run, I feel it's like it unlocks defenses. So I think Alderweireld, when he was still at Tottenham, was just known to just put that ball in and let like Hillman's son or Dele Alli make that run in, or Harry Kane. And so I think any center back, I feel like a lot of teams now, like the center backs, some of them have that skill to put that long pass in. And I think it just adds a whole new dimension to the offense and that defense as well.
I agree. And this is something that's more so in the modern game, because center backs didn't used to do this, play the ball out of the back or assist attackers even, right? But I think Andrew and I were talking on our previous pod, center backs are now expected to, bring the ball up, dribble the ball a little bit. You have a ball playing, what's known as a ball playing center back, and you have a more defensive, stopping center back. And like you have these center backs that can ping from deep in their half all the way to the other half. I'm like, I can't even kick a ball that far. How do you do that? Right. And with accuracy like that? That's just insane. So I have to totally agree with you there. My pick for crossing, this is going to come full circle back to my favorite player, David Beckham. So I just remember him at Real Madrid. Actually, a great example is him scoring against Wimbledon when I think it was like 93, 92, and he scored from the halfway line. And that just proves how pinpoint of a passer he is. And at Real Madrid, he had Ronaldo, so R9, the Brazilian Ronaldo. He passed this amazing bending right inward cross, and like Ronaldo just graced it in with his head. And same when he like assisted Zidane so many times. So he's just an incredible crosser, just can put it anywhere on the field. And sometimes I think fondly back on those highlights for sure. So that was it for today's episode of the Super Subs. Josiah, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully you as the listener got to learn a little bit more about what makes certain players stand out. You've got all the traits, you've got all the resources now at your disposal. Now you can go out there and watch some players and look at their skills, look at their physicality, look at the tackles and dribbles and saves and crosses and even leadership on the field that they have, and you can hopefully find your own favorite player as well. But that was today's episode of the Super Subs with
Andrew
and Harry. Thank you, Josiah, for coming on. We appreciate you as the guest. That was the season. Of course. Yeah, of course. Anytime. Hopefully we have you back on soon. That was the season finale of the Super Subs, episode 20. So this will be up soon. We may or may not take a very short break, and we'll be back soon. But don't miss our next podcast after that. We're going to start to introduce more and more guests. So more people are going to be coming on, talking a little bit about football, giving their own opinions. Obviously, not everything here is solid fact. We have our own opinions and thoughts that we're coming in with. But for now, we're going to be subbing off. Catch you on the next one.